Hello guys, welcome, and today I'm going to teach you about how to use constraints in whimsical building. So this is not for the average person because this tutorial is actually going to the depth of stuff. But anyways, let's start. So firstly, we need to go into config. And what config is basically a configuration tool where, for example, if I wanted my part to be a trampoline, I could change the velocity by clicking on it and changing the velocity as this is X, Y, and Z, and we need to jump on it. And as you see, without me pressing the spacebar, as you see, this is me pressing spacebar, this is me not pressing spacebar. It's pretty cool. Anyways, so we're not talking about that, we're talking about the constraints. So what we need to do is, if you're not on insert constraints, go onto there. Then after that, all you need to do is you need to start with the rope constraint. Rope constraint is actually pretty straightforward. What this is, also don't actually ungroup it because it can remove some features from the stuff, so that's not good. Anyways, so instead we need to hold shift and press T. This will have its individual selecting, just so you can have individual selecting. As you see, you can do that. And if you go into config, what length is basically the free length. Any closer or any further than 3, then it won't work. So, as you see, it works. If we wanted to do like 1, then yeah. If we want to do 5, then that. So that's actually pretty neat. Second thing I'm going to teach you about is the spring. Spring is actually a pretty simple one. And if you were wondering why I skipped over a rod, it's just because rod and rope are so similar, I don't really need to. So anyways, the spring is pretty straightforward. Spring absorbs tension. So as you see, spring actually absorbs the tension and makes it smaller. In length, of course, that is. So now, going into this, dampening is basically how slow it goes. So if it's very damped, then basically it'll go slower, kind of thing. Anyways, free length is the same thing I was talking about. So if it's more than 6, then it can't do anything. So like, for example, if I changed it to like 10, it can't go more than 10 studs. And if I wanted it just to be 3, then I could do that. Which is pretty neat. So anyways, our second thing is our max force. It's basically how much force it can exert out of it. So like, for example, 100 max force wouldn't really do much because it isn't a lot of force it's able to use. Like, for example, yeah, it's not a lot of force. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to config and talk about this. Stiffness. Stiffness basically makes it more stiff or less stiff. It's pretty neat. So the more stiff it is, the more fast it goes and how much tension it consumes. Anyways, limits enabled is basically the limits of the spring. So how far it can go. So look, I'm going to do the same exact thing with limits enabled and limits not enabled. Let's unanchor them both in 3, 2, 1. As you see, there's a lot of difference actually. So that's basically that. And what we're going to do is that we're going to go into the hinge. Hinge is basically a type of force, not force, it's a constraint that can only be rotated in one axis. So as you see, I'm able to rotate it just like this. So if I wanted to, I could remove the limits enabled and it would have no limits. So as you see, it's spinning, which is pretty neat. That's basically all it does. So the other thing I wanted to show you is prismatic. Prismatic is not really useful in itself, but you will see later on in the episode how it can be used, so it's useful. So prismatic is basically a constraint that is kind of like a block, but it can only be pushed in one direction. So you see, when I try to push it that way, it won't work. If I push it that way, then it works, which is pretty neat. So that's basically all of it for prismatic, except for the fact that it has a restitution, a lower limit and an upper limit. And also, it's about time I tell you about appearance. Appearance is basically how it appears, obviously. So if I wanted these two to be like really black, then I can do that. If I want it to be small, or if I wanted the constraint to be like really small, so you can't really see it, then yeah, you can do that. Basically, 0 is the same as visible, so it's not really a difference. So anyways, we have another thing. And that other thing is the hinge. Not hinge. The other thing is the cylindrical. Cylindrical is basically the same as prismatic, but it behaves in another way. So what it can do is basically if hinge and prismatic had a baby. As you see, I can spin it, at the same time I can push it. So that's pretty neat in some ways. So yeah, that is it for cylindrical. And after I select that, we are going to go on our final trip. We're going to go to the ball and socket. So basically the ball and socket is kind of like a constraint that can go in all axes. So it's basically hinge, but it can go in all axes, which is pretty cool. But right now I'm just going to cut off just because of the fact that my battery is low. See you in the next clip. The next constraint that we're going to do is actually a combo. So you can actually weld together constraints using the weld tool, which is actually F. So basically welding is where you can weld two parts together to be one. It's kind of like meshing, but it's actually a difference. So if I wanted to get these two together, I put it up. Without welding, it does this, which is not neat. But with welding, weld to last, and anchor it, it actually is one block now. So basically, if I like do this, as you see, it's all one part, which is pretty neat. So anyways, what we're going to do is that we're going to put the things together. So as you see, I avoided rod, universal and torsion spring. This is just because this is not for like advanced. I can teach you torsion spring and universal in the next lesson. So anyways, what we're going to do is that we're going to put spring and prismatic together. You may be thinking, what is spring and prismatic? You'll see later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay in one position so it can actually be on top of each other like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. Then, as you see, if I do this, this doesn't really work. It's all like, oh, maybe I should remove the limits. So as you see, oh, maybe I should do this. So maybe like stiffness 10 and But as you see, it doesn't actually go straight. But now, if I weld this together, then as you see, it goes in a straight line, which is pretty nice. This is used for any stiffness. So, like for example, 10,000. As you see, still works. It's just very bouncy now. So yeah. If you wanted to make a torturing device with this, then yeah, you could. It'd just be against TOS, so have fun dealing with that. Anyways, so now what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna do one more thing which I find pretty funny. Which the thing that I find funny is the cylindrical and hinge. Cylindrical and hinge actually goes together pretty well. Just watch this. If I do this, then as you see, I made a non-moving block without even having to weld all of it together, which I find pretty cool. It's useless but fun. So thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.